Thank you, AJ, and thank you everyone for being here. Oh, it's so wonderful to be here with you. So the song we just heard this evening was created based on an Iraqi folklore song called Chamali Wali, which means because I have no one to look after me now. The original song is about a woman who lost her father and brother and who has no husband as well. Thus, she sings about this pain in her heart, no one to look after her now. Nova Imad calls her song Ghurba, which means longing, and sings the song to reflect the immigrant longing for home when they live in the diaspora. Longing. The immigrant longs for their family, their culture, their homeland, as they traverse the land in which they find themselves, searching for a place to feel long. I grew up with such a parent. My father, Saadun Albayati, was an Iraqi singer and musician who played classical Arabic music and sang the songs that reflected a longing for homeland. The lyrics could be about a lover, but in reality are about longing for the place, the culture, the foods, the peoples left behind. In this song, we hear the singer Imad doing some vocalization in which she says, Ya Yumma, oh mother. Since she hasn't spoken of a mother within the song up to that point, it may not mean a longing for one's actual mother, but for the motherland, the place of their birth, the homeland. The great modern Iraqi poet, Abdul Wahab Albayati, whose poems were often put to music, wrote of this longing, including political commentary within his poetry. My father often sang the songs that use the words of Abdul Wahab. When my father sang, a guttural sound came from the depths of his soul, and one could feel the pain of the immigrant who longed to see his beloved once again. This was my life. I was the daughter of an immigrant who sang the songs of longing every single day of his life. I grew up with music serenading me from morning until night. We lived in Hollywood during my early years of childhood, and I was surrounded by musicians home, playing the music of their homelands until the wee hours of the morning. It should come as no surprise that I then became a musician when I turned 12 years of age. See, we owned an Arabic restaurant in Orange County, California. And I worked there, waiting on tables, cooking, washing dishes, as children within immigrant house be expected to do when they own a business. One day, while preparing the dining room to be opened, I picked up a drum and started playing it to the music that was on the speakers, as if I had played it all my life. Well, in a way I had. I was immersed in Arabic music before I was even born. The rhythms and the music became a part of my soul, as if I was an immigrant. Before I knew it, I was put onto the stage to perform with my father, and I never looked back. See, I was the Iraqi daughter who played the drum. And at a time when there really were few female drummers in America. Being a female drummer became a source of feminism for me. I was to be strong, and strong I was. But the drum became an outward expression of an inward feeling. As I played the songs that brought to the immigrants from the Middle East, I knew there was power in this instrument before me. But it was the songs sung with such passion and pain, the haunting and gorgeous voice of my father, that I too would long for the motherland. See, the child of immigrants very often take on the longing of the parents. We long for the homeland as much as they do. So when my father was dying, he told me about how he visited the Garden of Eden before he left for America. Summer, I don't know why, but I just had to see it before I left. I understood this to mean he knew that he would die soon, and he longed to return to his place of birth, home of the cradle of civilization, the home of the first peoples and the biblical and Quranic texts, the home of Adam and Eve, of Abraham, the place of Noah's Ark. Longing. The immigrant longs for the motherland. The children of immigrants do too. So imagine this daughter of an immigrant growing up in America, immersed in Iraqi, Arabic, Muslim culture, knowing that she traverses two cultures, but never fully fitting in. She is in what is known as liminality, a state of nearly arriving. This is the experience of those who come from two cultures. This is the experience of most of the children of immigrants. So we may go through experiences of trying to become more American as we take on the dominant culture. We try, and though we think we succeed, a part of us is denied if we cannot fully be our authentic selves. This feeling may be familiar to you. Perhaps you know this feeling of not quite belonging. Certainly it feels that way for the Black, Indigenous, and persons of color sitting in our congregations. There is a longing for returning to a homeland, a space where they can bring their full selves, their authentic selves, and yet not be found. Our congregations are not set up that way. And so the members of color and struggle to be heard and seen. Heard and seen, you say? Yes, heard and seen. Those of us who identify as persons of color are invisible within the Unitarian Universalist spaces we occupy. The invisibility is no matter whether you identify as mixed race or not. Invisibility is erasure. It is a subtle erasure of one. It is not fully seeing the whole aspect of what persons of color bring to the table. It is not fully embracing these gifts that dot the landscape of our congregations. This is why these spaces, like where we are now, like what has been created here this evening, are so important. Our Black, Indigenous, persons of color congregants must have spaces where they can feel fully seen, fully heard, fully embraced. Without these spaces, we do not honor their gifts, and we participate in the collective erasure perpetuated within the dominant culture. I want you to look, if you can, at the faces you see coming here each week. think about them? What do you notice? There's a certain demographic that remains. Now, not that I am of anyone's age, but I would venture to say that we are not all teenagers here. Maybe my son, who's here tonight, being the ripe old age of 19, can still be a teenager, but he's not considered youth, right? Our youth are not present. They're missing. But they too experience a subtle erasure within our congregations and beyond. How do we bring them fully into such a space without doing harm than good? I remember when my son attended General Assembly a few years ago, and he enjoyed the various activities for youth of color, but asked me where all the Middle Eastern youth were. I don't know, I told him. They must be around, but perhaps they're not present at this GA. My son felt the longing of the homeland, the longing of belonging that his immigrant grandparents felt. What are we doing if we do not help our youth feel that they fully belong in UU spaces? What is our purpose if we do not equip the next generations with the skills they will need to lead the world to its redemption? After all, most of us won't live forever. Who will continue Unitarian Universalism values into the world on our behalf? We already have knowledge that America is on a trajectory to be filled with mostly mixed race children in the future. Do we wish filled with children who do not fully belong, constantly in liminality, who long to be seen and heard and authentically present? Or do we want to create the spaces that welcome our youth of color fully into Unitarian Universalism now, before it is too late? Perhaps many of you, if not of color, can relate to that feeling of liminality that is occupied by persons of color constantly, because we are in a critical time in our history. It does not go unnoticed, and it has been spoken about this evening that in a few days, we shall know what may become of our future in this country or not. Most of us, and some of us spoke to, are on edge. I probably don't need to remind you that for persons of color, this time is especially scary. We don't know what will happen in the streets after November 3rd. We don't know what will happen to our immigrant siblings, LGBTQI siblings, our Indigenous, Latinx, Black, and Brown siblings, our Asian siblings, Muslim siblings, and to those of us with multiple identities that intersect, making us vulnerable during these scary times. We face erasure as persons of color, with various abilities, various gender identities, and various lifestyles. Communities of color face economic injustice, environmental injustice, and inequalities that keep us down. Erasure means we continue to long for a home, searching for that space that allows us to be our authentic selves. What if we were to experience home within Unitarian Universalism? What if we were to fully know that whatever happens on November 3rd, our UU communities will be there for us? What if we were to embrace our multiple identities and feel truly welcome in UU spaces as our authentic selves? What if we ate the foods of our homelands, as I believe Mateo said this evening, within those spaces? What if we heard the languages and music of our homeland in those spaces? And what if we knew that no matter what we were experiencing, we would always, how would that feel? Remember that restaurant that we own that I told you about? Well, some of you may or may not know the restaurant business is not easy, especially one that faced recurring bomb threats. Whenever America was mad at the Middle East, politics affect Arabic businesses. Yes, that's right. I said bomb threats. So I want you to imagine that 12-year-old girl answering the phone, only to be told by someone on the other line that her family's business will be bombed tonight. This was my experience growing up. And I would hang up the phone, look around all of our customers, and say a little prayer that we would all be okay and not die that night. What else could I do? My family's livelihood depended on the customers I saw before me. And I remember one night when workers came to dinner. I was scared, but they came and ate our excellent food and appeared. Then came the end of their evening, and with it, the threat to trash the place. My mother stood there before them, visibly upset, tore up their check, and then firmly told them they would do no such thing. My father and I were on the stage playing music at that time, but I kept one eye on that table the whole time. I observed my mother and spoke to my father to alert him that there may be a problem. Suddenly, we stopped playing music and exited the stage to be with my mother. She then told us what the bikers had said, and then, as if by magic, the whole restaurant, listening, filled with regular customers and others, rose up in solidarity to show that they were there to back us up, to protect us. That was probably one of the most scary times in my life. But I witnessed the power of that night. The restaurant supported us against the white supremacist bikers who intended us harm. And then they left. What will Unitarian Universalists do after November 3rd, I wonder? Will they rise? Will they support those most vulnerable in their midst? I leave you with the lyrics of the song we heard tonight, Khutbah, or Longing. She sang, "Tell him about me. Tell him my story. I have not been able to sleep since the day he left me. Tell him my soul has left my body. He is like a child of mine that I'm ready to sacrifice myself for. Yet the nights get longer. How am I supposed to explain what that means when I yearn for him? Even dawn seems like it takes forever to break the darkness because I have no one to look after me. left suffering in this world because I have no one to look after me. Tell him that this isolation is very hard. I'm ready to light candles of prayer if only someone can show me the road that leads to him. Tell him I wish I can run and hug him. I would use the soil of my homeland as henna to celebrate his return. Yet the nights get longer. How am I supposed to explain what that means when I yearn for him? Even dawn seems like it takes forever to break the darkness. Because I have no one to look after me. I am in this world because I have no one to look after me. Tell this handsome, dark-skinned man that there is no one like him and his head deserves a real crown of myrtle and ambergris. Yet the nights get longer. How am I supposed to explain what that means when I yearn for him? Even dawn seems like it takes forever to break the darkness because I have no one to look after me. I am left suffering in this world because I have no one to look after. I mean, thank you.